Blue and white HOA newsletters whirled behind that minivan like confetti from the saddest parade you ever saw. And I was out there barefoot, sprinting down Juniper Landing's perfect little cul-de-sac, sprinklers shooting up on both sides. Every Ring doorbell in the subdivision catching me on video yelling, "Bring back my kids, Beverly." And yeah, that's how it started. The minivan hesitated just long enough at the stop sign for me to catch a glimpse of the driver's arms loaded up with bangles, a badge on a lanyard that said compliance chair. Beverly herself waving the HOA bylaws out the window like she'd taken my family hostage. Let me back up a second just so you know who you're dealing with here. My name's Nolan Greer, and I moved to Juniper Landing for one reason: I wanted to live somewhere boring. That's right. Boring, safe, predictable. Sunday grilling spices in alphabetical order. The simple joy of not knowing a single neighbor's Wi-Fi password. I've got 3 kids who think sidewalk chalk is high art, and for a while life was exactly as dull as I'd hoped. Then came Beverly, self-declared president for life of the Juniper Landing community. Aesthetic counsel, this woman speaks in citations and carries a tape measure like a sidearm. Our feud started the morning she measured my grass and clocked it with what I can only describe as professional disgust. "Nolan, your Bermuda is performing flamboyantly," she announced like my lawn had personally insulted her ancestors. I didn't even know grass could perform until Beverly decided mine was doing it wrong. From there, the violations just snowballed first. A warning for my 6-year-old's chalk mural. A dragon, by the way. Very avant-garde. Beverly left a printed notice taped to the mailbox. Mythical creatures undermine neighborhood credibility. Next, she reported my rogue tomato plants. Yeah, you heard me, visible from the street, complete with surveillance photos, red circles, and arrows pointing out the offending produce. Then there was laundry on the line vibe infringement, according to Beverly, and a citation for leaving my garage door open more than 15 minutes. While unloading groceries, she fined me $50 for visual clutter exposure. The lemonade stand, shut down. Confiscated the cash box, 20 quarters in there all told, so she could audit for compliance. My kids cried. I started documenting everything. It escalated from there. Beverly called it routine wellness walks, but let's be real, she was peeking through our curtains with a flashlight and clipboard at dusk, snapping photos right through our dining room window. I confronted her one night and she just smiled and told me she was gathering documentation for quality assurance purposes. Next day, citation for a non-compliant mailbox because my kids stuck googly eyes on it. I got the violation slip with close-up photos before the glue even dried. She started reporting the sound of my kids running through the sprinklers as child-origin decibel spikes threatened to call the cops for a noise violation. I put up a privacy lattice for my herb garden, and Beverly cranked it up another notch. She photoshopped my yard to look like a nuclear wasteland and distributed a before and after newsletter to every house. Posted it to the neighborhood Facebook group with a caption, "This is what happens when compliance dies." Rumors took off. Suddenly I was running a rogue daycare, maybe a speakeasy, maybe even a trampoline cartel. Neighbors crossed the street. People stopped saying hi. It would have been funny if it wasn't my real life. Every morning, another note on my windshield. Your car was 4 inches beyond optimal driveway position. Your garden hose visible for 6 minutes. Soccer ball observed in front yard at 9:37 a.m. All signed, of course, Beverly Crannell Compliance Chair. Then get this, I found a tiny tracker bedazzled with the HOA logo in my son's backpack. A note attached, monitoring for community safety. Beverly called CPS claiming my kids were at risk of aesthetic neglect and presented a 40-page binder of environmental degradation photos, timestamps, you name it. When CPS showed up, I was ready. I laid out everything: the trackers in all 3 backpacks, her threatening emails, doorbell, cam footage of Beverly measuring my grass at 2 a.m., my own log of her nightly patrols, over 60 incidents that month alone. The CPS folks, especially this investigator named Sarah with kind eyes, looked through it all, shook their heads and said, "We're not worried about you, Mr. Greer. We're worried about her." They apologized for the visit, promised to file a report. And for one brief moment, I thought that was the end. I should have known better. That evening, I ran out for milk, just 12 minutes tops. Beverly made her move. She rolled up on my kids, Ethan 9, Sophie 7, Mason 5, told them I'd sent her to bring them to a special HOA meeting. There'd be cookies. They got in her minivan. She drove them to the HOA clubhouse, locked the doors, called it safekeeping, until standards could be restored. I came home to empty chalk outlines on the driveway. My heart just stopped. Called their names, searched the backyard, banged on neighbors' doors. Nothing. Then my phone started blowing up with notifications, Amber Alert countywide. Neighbors calling, asking if my kids were really missing. Here's the twist. Our neighborhood's tech whiz, Marcus, 16 glasses, always glued to his laptop, had been watching the Beverly show unfold for months. He hacked the neighborhood cameras, called me with a shaky voice. "Mr. Greer, I found them. Beverly took your kids. I have the footage. Traffic cams caught her minivan sign in the window, junior compliance students on board. The FBI got involved. She'd crossed county lines to the HOA's model home training facility. Now we had ourselves a federal kidnapping case. I was told to stay by my phone the longest 30 minutes of my life. Law enforcement boxed in her minivan at the clubhouse, helicopters, overhead news crew live on the scene. An FBI agent calmly called out, 'Ma'am, put down the binder and release the children.' Beverly started citing bylaws so fast she went hoarse. Through the windows, officers saw my kids at a table, Beverly at the whiteboard, lecturing on curb appeal. Officers breached the building. My kids were happily munching donut holes, explaining to police about Beverly's compliance quizzes. Sophie told an officer, deadpan, 'Miss Beverly said we have to learn the rules because Daddy teaches us wrong.' Ethan had flashcards. Which color of chalk is legal for even-numbered addresses? Mason piped up. She said we could go home once we passed the test. The HOA board, sensing the legal meteor headed their way, started coughing up evidence emails from Beverly bragging about preemptive custody for curb appeal plans to remove non-compliant variables. Board members confessed they'd been too scared to stand up to her. A landscaper even produced audio from his leaf blower GoPro. Don't ask me why, where Beverly said, 'Sometimes you have to confiscate the variables to restore order.' Court day. 3 months later, packed house. The prosecution rolled in a cart loaded with Beverly's binders, laminated commandments, violation, slips her private surveillance log. Her lawyer looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. My client believed she was within community standards, he mumbled, like that explained kidnapping 3 children. The prosecutor, Janet Mills, cool as ice, just asked, "Which standard involves tracking devices in backpacks? Which standard involves midnight surveillance? Which standard lets you take children?" Dead silence in the courtroom. The judge, weary and wise, leaned over his bonsai and said, "Mrs. Crannell, which standard authorizes kidnapping?" Beverly opened her mouth, probably to quote some subsection, but her lawyer stopped her cold. Then came the evidence: doorbell videos, traffic cams, the padlocked clubhouse, her emergency youth compliance training lesson plan on the whiteboard. My kids testified bravest I've ever seen them. Ethan told how she'd watched them for months. Sophie explained the quizzes. Mason, peeking over the witness box, said he thought they were in trouble because their chalk dragon was too big. Sarah from CPS described the trackers and Beverly's escalating pattern. Marcus, our tech genius, presented his findings like a pro. Even the mailman took the stand, said Beverly interrogated him about our delivery times. Beverly tried to cite subsection 8 about temporary possession of non-compliant items. The judge cut her off. "Children are not items, Mrs. Crannell. They are not property. They cannot be confiscated like a mailbox or a garden gnome." That room exhaled all at once. Guilty on 3 counts of kidnapping, 3 counts of false imprisonment, stalking, criminal surveillance, child endangerment. And my personal favorite, a bouquet of enhancements for abusing authority. Judge sentenced her to life, no parole for 25 years, and banned her from clipboards, notepads, HOA boards, or any position of authority for the remainder of natural time. Beverly's face, she looked at her laminated bylaws like maybe they'd save her. But the standards, she whispered, still clutching those pages. Bailiffs led her away, her voice echoing down the hall about grass chalk noncompliance. So yeah, I moved here for boring, but wound up living through the wildest chapter of Juniper Landing's history. The neighborhood's a little quieter now. My kids draw dragons in peace. Nobody times my garage door. And even Beverly's most loyal followers have switched to tomatoes. But let me ask you, where's the line between community standards and personal freedom? When does order become something else entirely? Drop your thoughts below. Tell me if you've ever met a Beverly, and if you think justice was finally served. Hit subscribe if you want more stories from the land of the truly unbelievable. Trust me, there's plenty more where that came from.